So, hello everybody, another session of Holochain-in-Action community weekly meeting that the close friend inside the communities meeting each other, talking about the Holochain technology, hApps, architect, and so on and so forth. So, and it is another Tuesday and another meeting. So if you would like to participate, in the description, you can find a link. Please send an application that we can invite you then. So especially if you are from other communities and other technologies, it would be fantastic if we can see if there is any possibility for other technologies to merge to see that maybe new things is going to come out. That being said, this session, Connor is going to talk about his experience at the top of Holo-REA. So I think if you don't know about the Holo-REA, just please search, but it is fantastic. And Connor is going to explain what is it and what is his experience about Holo-REA. So let's go to Connor.
Cool. Thanks, Hidayat. Welcome, Wesley. Yeah, so it's been recently that there's been more, this project like Holo-REA has like kind of long history and like lots of roots and like it's kind of like yeah, I'm sort of have this like history of like entanglement with this project well before it was ever like Holo-REA and before, because it was Valueflows before that and a more general framework. And also like I have relationships long-standing with some of the people who've worked on this project, Valueflows, for a long time. Eric, I think, knows them as well. I don't know how long you've known them, Eric.
Not as long as you.
No?
No, I mean, I've known of them for a long, long time, but I haven't really done work with them as you have.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah, like going back to like 2012 when I was working on MetaMaps, I was having like a lot of interaction with Bob and Lynn, who are two folks who are worked with a lot of dedication on this Valueflows ontology and framework, which is for the sake of coordination of distributed economic ecosystems, sort of like people working together across, rather than, they call it like enterprise resource planning, but that's usually for an enterprise. That's from a very corporate point of view, and Valueflows is from kind of an ecosystem interdependence point of view in terms of like economic coordination. So and at the time when I was working on MetaMaps, we were calling ourselves, those of us who worked on MetaMaps, an open value network. And so we were interested in that, that framework of open coordination on either, you know, open source software or open source hardware is what Sensorica works on, which Sensorica was based in Montreal. They were building hardware in an open source way, and they've been one of the premier people who've developed and used this kind of like REA system. So, so anyways, that's like big picture background context for like what REA is, and REA stands for Resource Event Agent, in terms of three primitives in the ontology. So, but then what they did is they took this REA, these REA primitives, and they built up a bunch of new layers and pieces in the ontology on top of those things, to allow for different kinds of coordination between parties. So anyways, what I knew about Holo-REA up until recently was that it was a project that was building an implementation of REA on Holochain, but I didn't know what its status was. And a couple of weeks ago, I kind of like wanted to sit down and try to run Holo-REA on my computer to get like a hands-on sense of like which parts of it were done and which parts of it were in development, and like basically like how usable is it, like how close to usable is it in terms of what's working and what's not working. And yeah, because I see a lot of use cases for it, and there are projects that are being kind of built, like the one that Shane's working on, that are trying to build with it on top of it, but there's still some barriers to building on top of it because it as a platform is still not totally complete. So the problem is to build on top of something. It's of course, like with Holochain, it's now you'd be building on top of Holo-REA, which is incomplete, which is on top of Holochain, which is in progress. And so that could be a real challenge. So my curiosity was, how can we reduce the number of layers of complexity, the number of challenges that people have to overcome in order to get familiar with Holo-REA and to access the functions that it currently has, knowing that it's still a work in progress, but how can you just access what has been built and be aware of it, and as distinct from what's still being built. So you can all access like some of the links that I can share. HiA, they can go in the description or whatever, right down below. There's like going to be a link to this tutorial and a link to these downloads, these releases and stuff like that. So I guess like I'll kind of show those on my screen too. Like I'll just run it. I'll pretend as if I was kind of going through it, but that's also, I've already recorded that in a video, so it won't be anything new that we don't already have sort of access to. But the basics would be going to, right now, you have to go to my fork of the Holo-REA project. So it's not the, I just, before I had developer access to the root repository, I just forked it so that I could make my changes and stuff like that. And so I worked on all this release automation stuff because I've been working a lot on that. So I worked on release automation to make it so that we could really easily perform these releases of the Holo-REA source code. And recently that code got merged into Holo-REA upstream. So that's going to be hopefully really useful. But yeah, I call this the unofficial release of a fork of Holo-REA. So it's like, it's just kind of work in progress stuff, but it's meant to give people easy access to the functions of Holo-REA in its current status. So the idea is like, I think everyone here is familiar with Launcher, but the idea is that with the Holochain Launcher already being out, I wondered if you could package this GraphQL Explorer system that was built in the Holo-REA one. I'll show you this GraphQL Explorer. It's going to be this thing that looks like this. And so to get this GraphQL Explorer, before you'd have to go through you'd have to use the command line and clone the Holo-REA and then run the source code like on your system. But yeah, I thought you could package this code, this web-app code, and run it on the launcher if you could install the backend app on the launcher as well. So the idea is you would go to the launcher, download the one for the Holochain launcher for your platform. And once you install it, then you can run it just like I've got already running here on my system. So if we launch the Holochain launcher, then this is the interface where you can install new web apps. And then this is the one that is running the app which I released here, which is this GraphQL Explorer scene here. And so you download it. You download this hrea.web app. And then once it's sitting on your system, you you open up the launcher, you click install new app, and you pick and you find your hrea.web-app here, and you click open. I guess I can do this because, and then once you're here, then you click install. I'm not going to install because I've already got it installed. So once it installs, which takes like about a minute or so, then you've got this running, and then you can open the UI here. And this is all that it takes to get the GraphQL Explorer up and running now, which is the real kind of breakthrough that I was hoping for. And it took a lot of like twists and turns to get to this point, but I was really happy that it was possible overall. So yeah, hApps.
Yeah. So just for if you are new to Holochain ecosystem, if you don't know how, for the people that maybe it is the first time, Launcher is the application or standalone, something that you can install and bring up the Holochain application inside. In the Holochain YouTube, there is a dedicated video. We already demo everything about the launcher. I'm going to link the video here.
Yeah.
And also, I would like to ask, and also all the link repository that you see during the video, I'm going to share in the description. Connor, before continue, would you please also quick review your article and your blog post that I would like to share the link that the people know. If they miss the pathway, they can go and read the article to see what's happening. Before continue, would you please just quick?
Yeah, for sure.
I can, yes. Yes,
right. So there's this document that I've been working on called Experimenting with Holo-REA, which one helps you get set up with the tool, but once you get set up, then it helps you understand what to do with it, and where to start and how to start understanding the basic parts of what you can do with Holo-REA. What are the things you could be thinking about? Processes, events, resources, etc. It talks about those things, and it also talks about how to start to actually form your queries to the through GraphQL using the kind of the specificities of Holo-REA. So which can really take some learning and some back and forth kind of with the API. Sometimes it'll give you errors, and figuring out what those errors mean can be dense and stuff like that. So it helps you get started, and also helps you understand how the user interface works. What are the docs? What's the Explorer over here? That kind of thing. So that's in this document, and we can run a couple of those in this video too, and that's kind of part of my purpose, is to talk about those things and see how they appear in context and in practice. So yeah, but this is the doc that HiA is talking about, and we'll share it.
I highly recommend to review the doc. It is really fantastic, and if you're totally new with Holo-REA, and also it navigates you to read REA, what is it stand for, and it's really fantastic. At first, I recommend to read the article. Thank you, Connor, please.
Great. So has anyone else here done this yet? Installed it this way that I just showed? Has anyone else done that? Because I've been really curious.
Not this way with the launcher at all. What I did with Victor, 3 months ago, something like from 6 months ago to 3 months ago, we were having a weekly call in which we were trying to build a really small REA inventory component, which would list the resources, economic resources, just by calling GraphQL. And then you could add a new resource, and that was it. We were having a lot of problems with the layer of REA that wasn't ready, right? So it's like, okay, maybe the zone wasn't ready, or maybe there was some conflict in the create, or maybe there was some some difficulty installing the GraphQL module, the npm, sorry, the JavaScript GraphQL module still. So it was a bit of we spent a much more time understanding the grammar and what we would do with it than actually doing this.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I kind of like checked out some of the source code for the REA inventory one, because I kind of seen it like linked to and referenced and stuff. So Guillaume's talking about kind of the notion that like when if the system of REA is capable of kind of like managing resources, resources being a super generic term for just about anything from the produce in your fridge to computers to toys to like pretty much any material or even potentially immaterial things such as a software, could even be a software product, I think. So any kind of resource which is an artifact that people work together on, for example, could even be like an article or a book or anything, literally anything that people collaborate on, that they put their effort into, and that could be traded or transacted, bought or sold or gifted. All of that applies to what the notion of a resource is in the REA. So Shane, did you want to jump in and say kind of because you've installed it and you're working on a user interface, and that's kind of the point of some of what I did in a way. And do you want to talk about your context?
Yeah, sure. I'll probably fumble through it because it's still not totally clear in my head, but I think that's why we do these calls. So the idea is to build a like a drag and drop modeling interface on top of Holo-REA, so that people can define their own resources, their own events, and start doing some accounting on whatever they want. The context that we're starting with is carbon accounting for a community garden. And we're going to also try to apply it to the New York Textile Labs project as well. So trying to redefine the supply chain for New York State and wool and alpaca farmers and to the textiles there. So anyways, the long story short is something where people can be playing with value flows. I guess I'll share my screen. This is kind of what I've been.
Yeah, awesome.
Can I actually? Do I have permissions to do that?
Yes, I gave.
Oh wow! Look at that.
Wow, it's a magic. You can share your screen.
Magic.
Magic of technology.
Oops. All right. Is this showing up?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. I'll zoom in. So this is me just trying to figure out like what's going on. So on the Holo-REA side, the left side of the screen, we have the web app that Connor bundled up that comes with the GraphQL Explorer and the web app, and down underneath those are all the different DNAs that are bundled with it. Yeah. And on the right side is we're trying to build a front end that will talk to that through GraphQL. And I used the scaffolding tool to create a module because I thought it would make sense to have it as a module first. I'm not sure if this will show up, but what's happening is there's this idea of singular and pluralness in the modules. And so I'm getting, what am I getting? Yeah, I'm getting like HREA modeler and HREA modelers in the TypeScript side of things, and I'm just trying to wrap my head around it. And it sounds like it's lending itself to potentially have multiple projects. So if like one modeler could be for one set of resources as resources, and I guess what I'm trying to say, it sounds like it could be used for multiple projects, and I'm trying to consider, do I want to play with that complexity right now? And if so, how would one of those then link to all the different DNAs in the bundled web app? Another thing I'm trying to consider is it comes pre-made with the profiles module from OpenDev, which has been awesome. How does that link up to agent in with Holo-REA? And finally is the Holochain playground that comes with the scaffolded tool is awesome. Can I get something that I can plug into a web app running on a launcher? Because I would love to be able to take a peek at what's going on in there. So this is kind of what I've been doing this morning. I'm just trying to map all this out, trying to figure out what pieces are needed and what even like makes sense. So I can't share anything conclusive, but that is my my verbal
Awesome.
what's been going on.
Thanks for sharing your work in progress. It's really cool to see, and the diagram is it's kind of really helpful and cool because it could apply to, like, you know, I think it's kind of interesting because in a way, even the UI that you're talking about, like an REA play space one, it's kind of like another take on an Explorer type system. Like it's more visual, but it's still on the level of a sort of Explorer. It's not sort of an end user interface. It's kind of a learning tool, a teaching tool, a modeling tool. Like it's for advanced users for sure. People who have to understand the ontology raw, right? They have to understand the ontology directly. So that's interesting that it's kind of like another variation on that GraphQL Explorer, but more visual, giving the whole visual representation. But it also points the way towards other user interfaces like the REA inventory one that Gia mentioned, which is a little more purpose-built, a little narrower, doesn't have to encapsulate the whole ontology. It's specifically for the economic resources. Still generic though, in the sense that it's like could be an inventory for anything. And then you could go one step further, and interesting thing would be like, you know, what about fully purpose-built applications that just happen to use Holo-REA kind of way under the hood, and an end user would have to know nothing in regards to the REA, or next to nothing in terms of the REA, like ontology and specifics. Rather, they could you know, manage their farm inventory or their conduct business, kind of like, or the New York Textile Labs might be an example of that. I'm not sure if you're looking for a purpose-built UI in that context. Are you, Shane? Is it kind of like something built to fit for the textiles?
What I'm working on right now isn't purpose-built for New York Textiles. It's for the carbon accounting project. But I'm like, it seems like there's enough overlap that it could be made to it could be used for both, and that's why I tried the module web component route first, because I'm like, oh, can we just start off with that? But maybe it'll take a bit of iteration first.
Eric?
So yeah, the context of the carbon accounting is for a college class that wants to be able to do to just lay out a plan, and part of what I'm interested in us being able to get done with that is a version of, not that you don't have to know the full ontology of REA, but the thing is, you know, if you want to do accounting, you kind of have to know a little bit about double entry bookkeeping, and people actually can understand that. And I think there's something really valuable in creating a visual map that makes it possible to begin to understand REA. Not that you need to know the full accounting, but you have a visual tool that actually shows it. I don't know, Shane, if you wanted to open that up again and drag to the example of the diagram that we want to actually have be the visual that people can use, because that's kind of in between your GraphQL, which is literally showing, you know, you have to really understand. But this kind of user interface
Yeah.
right? That is not, you have to understand, quote, the ontology, but it's like not that really hard. There's agents that you can drag a resource onto the screen. There's a process you can drag onto the screen. When you drag a line between a process and a resource, what you're doing is you're selecting an action, and these actions pop up in a list that say, are you going to produce? Are you going to transfer? Are you going to modify? That's the ontology, but it's really it's not much to learn. So I don't think it's like, I don't want to, it's like between purpose built and not. And I really think that would be really powerful for getting the REA ideas out there and be able to be actually used.
Yeah, and I'd even argue that it'd be easier to learn the Valueflows ontology through this than through the Graphql Explorer, just because JSON doesn't make a very colorful image in my mind right off the bat, but something these nodes and strings would.
Yeah, very true. So what Shane is showing, cool. Can we switch from that one back to the GraphQL one for a minute and show the connection between those two things? Actually, like to my screen, to a GraphQL,
sure.
To a GraphQL query. So the one that we were just looking at that Shane is working on should be able to actually execute some of the kinds of queries that you can do with Holo-REA. So I'll just give like the very first example of that we kind of that we use in the document. I'll just skip to it. You can kind of find you can find it in the document on your own. You guys can see this right now, yeah? Can you see this? Okay, yeah. Okay, so.
Yeah, looks good.
Okay, cool. So let's just take a look at this. Take a look at this query for a second. This is the one that we kind of start with, and it's generally like the kind of one to start with, most intuitively, called economic event. And the idea that Eric was talking about, whether it's a transfer or a use or a site, there's different things that can go in here under the action. They're all listed in the doc, and they're explained in all these actions. They're explained at this link here on the Valueflows website. So produce, use, consume, cite, work, we've got, and then down at the bottom we've got raise and lower. So raise is the one I'm using, and it says it adjusts a quantity up based on a beginning balance or inventory count. So we're playing with the idea that I'm taking an inventory, and I'm taking an inventory of my lettuce quantities, and so the resource is classified. The resource that I'm referring to is classified as lettuce, and I'm saying that there's 3 of them, and I'm saying that this is happening at this particular point in time. And I'm actually also using provider and receiver, which are like the person who's sort of like, in this case, it's the same ID for the provider and the receiver, because I'm the one who owns the resources, but I'm also the one who's like taking the inventory. So so that's why the provider and the receiver are the same in this particular one of that we're run called raise. And then also all that I'm saying about the economic event response is all I want back is the ID. I could pull the rest of the other fields off the response here as well, but just going for the ID. But this one, what happened there? Did I do this right? Something about, oh, maybe that's the same thing. That's interesting because I was running it yesterday. I send this to someone who just installed it, and can someone else, can you
I already
Sure.
run it?
I just installed it.
I don't know if you can just take the whole thing that I just shared in the
It works.
what?
It works.
It works for you? So maybe I messed up my thing somehow. Can you share your screen?
Yeah, also.
I can't actually, hApps.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you cannot do the magic of sharing screen.
I'm an apprentice.
Now you can. Yeah.
So how do you type it in? How do you paste it in? Because it didn't, like, what are you doing to get that?
So what I did is I copied the message, I selected all, and I pasted it. And
But like when I click in this area, I can't. Oh, there you go.
You got it too, Eric?
Yeah, and then you can just click run. Yeah, I got one.
Okay, great. I must have just messed up my system somehow.
No, Connor, I guess maybe there is in typo in your blog because I copy and paste the section in your blog. It didn't work, but I copy and paste your note in the chat and it works.
Oh, interesting.
Maybe some parentheses or some curly braces is missed or something.
Yeah. Okay, I'll double check after the fact. So what we saw was that
you are watching. So if it is not running, double check the number of curly braces, play with them. It's going to be working. That's it. Do not just copy and paste. Okay. Sorry, please.
Cool. So the thing, for example, to note about the work in progress status of Holo-REA is that this action of raise actually has another thing that, or the create economic event has another property that we can pass to it normally called new inventoried resource. And it's how we create an economic resource. However, there is currently a bug with this. And so based on the current update. So we're not able to pass the new inventoried resource and have it be created. So this is an example of like the work in progress status, and you try to use it and that function doesn't work. And Posby and I have been talking about what's the fix for that, for example. So this is a big blocker for anyone who's trying to build like a user interface, is you can't create this economic resource right now, a new inventory resource on this event. So note that you can't do that. That's important to note at the moment as of this kind of video and this time. But that will be fixed, quite soon. And we'll get that function back into action, because it's one of the most basic functions that we need to be able to utilize to build everything else. So, and there's actually lots of functions in the system that are incomplete. So they're not even, it's not that they have bugs, they're literally just not complete. So the thing to kind of note is that the things which are supposed to work are the create economic event, create economic resource, also list economic events, and it's just a query called economic events, and also economic resources as a query are supposed to work, but the economic resources query also doesn't work at the moment. So the main thing that works right now is create economic event and list and call economic events, so you can list them back, the economic event.
Can you just walk us through doing that particular one using this user interface? Just for fun right now?
Yeah, sure. Someone again try this.
Here, I'll share my screen here. What should I do?
Pull in this most recent chat message from me and paste it in there.
Here, hold on.
So if you succeeded in creating economic events, then you should be able to query and list back those economic events. And so, so that's what Eric is about.
So this is what, is that, okay.
Yeah, it gets kind of uglified when we paste it in and put it through this thing, but that doesn't matter. I don't know if...
Prettify.
Oh, that does work. Nice.
Okay. And
Yeah,
so
go for
now I should be.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how did you? So that this now runs. It's rather slow. I think this is going to time out.
Oh, really?
Timeout zone, because when it runs like that, it was the other thing was really fast. Is this correct?
Oh.
So yeah.
Oh, that
Timeout zone call.
one timed out.
What if you open your JavaScript panel? Do you get any errors?
Interesting. I haven't seen that work.
Use of mutation events is deprecated. Use mutation observer.
Connor, I received the result. I can share my screen.
Oh, you received a result. Interesting. So it seems like it can time out, but it can also complete.
Yeah.
For Eric, it's timing out.
Guillaume, would you please also run?
I was typing in the chat that I need to go.
Okay, bye, Guillaume.
So yeah, thank you so much.
Hidayat, that query worked for you. Do you want to share your screen? It's interesting. It's very
Yes,
like popcorn. Who will it work for?
Is everyone on the same version of the launcher? Because that was an issue recently.
I'm on the latest one.
Yeah. Okay.
I installed it right now, right before running here. 038.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me.
I have a different UID, but it's working for me.
Can you see my screen?
Oh, nice, Hidayat.
Cool.
Awesome. So a couple times Hidayat has called create economic event. And by running this query of economic events, you're searching for edges, and on each node, you're pulling the ID and the action ID and the resource classified as, and the has numerical value on resource quantity. So there's our list of events that have been logged, and from this, you could kind of put them into order based on like what time they happened, which I guess is not being queried there, but we could put them into order. And for example,
Connor, sorry, you have control of my desktop. You can move them
oh yeah.
up. Please go ahead.
Oh, cool. Okay. Oh, do I have like? Oh, cool. Yeah, I would just check for has point in time, maybe. It's not showing the timestamp there. That might be something that's not working quite properly because I think that was the field that we provided an input for. So if it was giving us back the right, so this is like the very much work in progress kind of status of it. It can be hard to tell what you're doing wrong as the user and what the system is doing wrong, because this is not well documented yet. So it's very much a work in progress. Yeah, so has point in time should have a timestamp on it. And if it had a timestamp, then we could create sort of like a history, you know, a list of the economic events that were taking place within our economic network. Then we could do more sophisticated queries to filter which economic events we are returning. For example, we could only look for certain actions or that kind of thing. So those are the things we should be able to do, but that are still kinds of works in progress. So yeah, this is kind of, the point was to show what's kind of there and what's not there. And if we could query for economic resources, then we would get back a list of resources. And for example, those resources would show us how many lettuce we have now based on the economic events that have gone in. So for example, if there was a raise by 2 and then a lower by 1, then we would be left with 1 lettuce. So it should automatically be handling to some degree our sort of inventory. And that kind of thing. So these are the kinds of things that Holo-REA can do for us. Yeah, you can stop sharing again, Hidayat. That's kind of concludes my point.
Wow. That was amazing.
Yeah, so it's some of the basic functions, but it definitely feels exciting to be able to call those functions and to start to familiarize with them, especially to understand what's working and what's not working. So if we're going to try to build, like Shane, he's trying to build a user interface right now. He's going to need to know what he can count on and what he can't count on in terms of those functions that work, what status they're in, that kind of thing, because Holo-REA is an evolving project as well. So yeah, we're currently, like, I'm collaborating with Shane a little bit as a kind of like from an unblocking kind of point of view, and trying to support overall the move of Holo-REA towards getting out into the hands of like more developers and more people to understand it better and more people to be able to like interact with it with a reduced barrier to entry. So you know, I'm inviting anyone who's like watching this and here to like to try these things out, to familiarize and to start learning about it and thinking about like what you could build with this. So yeah, that's all I have to say at the moment about that. I want to hear people's thoughts and curiosities. So.
Amazing job, Connor. Thank you. And I have one question from Shane. Shane, what do you think? When it's going to be a little bit MVP or something that we can see? So the UI and the architect that you showed us.
Mm-hmm. I'm hoping in the next like week or two, we're going to be able to start dragging, at least like my goal is to like drop a node onto the screen, it creates a resource or an event or something, and then someone else can query that and it'll pop up on theirs, just as a proof of concept that the plumbing is working from end to end. So that's my hope.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you.
Actually, that's something I've been curious about already, actually, is like technically we would all be running on the same DNA, right? So this is interesting to me. Like if we were just all experimenting with it, would that mean that what HiA you were seeing in terms of economic events, did that include economic events that other people created?
Yes, as I was playing around, I was getting the 1.5 peanuts that you made earlier in time or something. So
interesting. So like, so you were already kind of had a bit of a proof that you were seeing an economic event that I created. We were sharing a network and sharing data.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah. When you unblocked me a few days ago, I was getting stuff that you created.
I see. Oh, that's amazing. I hadn't really like validated that yet. Of course, like there's no reason why it wouldn't, theory, but it's, yeah.
I'd love to find out why I'm timing out on the Zoom calls. I wonder if there's something in the logs, the launcher logs.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to diagnose a little bit. But yeah, it's just like another note that Oscar and I are trying to figure out what's going to be the solution to this economic resource problem. Is that his fan? I think your fan might have been getting really hot there. Yeah, so anyways, Posby and I are working on sorting out the economic resource bug, and hopefully we'll have that soon, which would be, I feel like that would be the main thing needed to kind of like, then you have like you have resources, events, and agents like as a baseline that you need, right? So that's going to be crucial.
Well, actually, for this use case, the thing that's that we have to start with is the thing above it, which is the process, and
process, right?
right, the process and the resource definition, not an actual resource, because then and then you want to be able to drag an action so that then the first thing you do is you make a commitment, and then the next thing you do is you fulfill the commitment, which would actually create the resource, or would create the event, which might then create the resource, depending on if it's that kind of event.
Right.
But the thing is, it shouldn't matter, right? Because your proof of concept chain, it can be any particular part of the thing. It's because you should just be able to use the GraphQL to create that kind of entity inside of Holo-REA. But anyways.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense. Like that the economic events relate to a process, but you also have like a process, I think it's called a process specification. So you create a process specification, and then you can create a process based on that process specification, and it knows what kind of process it is, like, or it's clear, and you kind of instantiate it. Yeah. So it's really interesting to actually like work it through to these next levels. That's kind of what I'm curious about, is like what's the common things? Like do you have to create these specifications? How useful are they? Or these resources, there's resource specifications too. So in order to create, yeah, it's just, I'm still learning so much as well. I'm learning, do you have to create a process specification and then a process, or can you create a process without a process specification? For example, these are the kinds of things, there's all these interdependencies, and figuring out like which ones you have to do in which order. One of the best ways that I've found to like look through this actually has been, I've been reading the tests, which are actually like scenario tests, which are in the Holo-REA source code project. And it's really useful because it shows a whole sequence of things written out as a test. And so it says, I create this, and then I create one of those, which refers to this. And then it just shows the whole flow of like a sequence of GraphQL requests and responses. And if you take this ID and you put it down in here, you know, the relationships between things. So,
well, one thing that I understand, and I'm not an expert in this stuff at all, I'm just like you, Connor, just getting into understanding it. But from my conversations with Bob and Lynn, the system itself is designed so that you don't have to do the planning and all this stuff before you can start recording economic events. It's meant to be that you can do all of those in any order, because that's actually what happens in the real world, is that sometimes you create an economic event and then you realize you need to plan for it. And then you need a plan specification for that type of plan. And so I'm really hoping that the user interface that we build actually allows for you to start being able to record these events and then add things on top of that refer to those kinds of events that were being recorded already.
Okay, nice.
Because that's actually part of the coolness of the whole ontology.
Well, and one thing that is really painful in the GraphQL queries, which would be really nice in the UI, is like using like copy and pasting these like identifiers. And I guess like in the UI, you wouldn't have to copy paste these like IDs all over the place, because they're visually represented. And if you click from this thing to that thing, then the system is accounting for the ID of this and the ID of that, and the fact that they're connected. So you're not kind of copy pasting IDs. Actually, that makes me think of validation though, Eric, like whether it's like can you connect this kind of thing to that kind of thing, and whether the system does any enforcing of that according to constraints. Like it's like, oh, actually you can't connect this to that. Those don't have a connection. And that would almost like have to be a kind of user feedback, or like this is a red node and this is a green node, in the sense that I can drag to this one and not that one, you know, giving that kind of user feedback or validation or something like that.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that quite a bit the past few days. Has anyone played with Node-RED before?
Node-RED.
Raspberry Pis.
It's like a visual
Anyways,
programming language, right?
yeah, so it's a
Great.
whole lot of fun, but the reason I bring that up is because you can make custom elements in there and you write your JavaScript and put them in the nodes, just kind of like what we've been talking about here. But the input and output nodes are then reflected to the arguments that you pass into it, and then the outputs. And I don't know where this article came from, but I'll drop it in the chat here. And so I'm thinking it's like a lot of these processes will have inputs, which are resources, and outputs, which are resources. So how can we, like in the example in right there, a little bit way down, there's baking a lemon meringue pie, for example, there could be like an output node from one that can only fit into a lemon input on the other. And how do you make sure that it's easily marked and stuff like that? So, yeah. Which is why
language from what do they call that, like visual programming, no code programming languages, that kind of thing.
I missed the first part of that. Can you say it again?
Like using design patterns from no code or like low code programming languages to do the modeling. That's, yeah, that makes a lot of sense because they've defined a lot of good patterns for imposing constraints onto a system where you're kind of like connecting inputs to outputs, but the type system matters, like what type of this thing is and what type of that thing is really matters. So that's very cool.
We are about, I think, to 1 hour. That's it about the, is there any other topic? We can stop recording. I think if there is anything else, please mention. Otherwise, we can finish the recording, and like always, we can continue the conversation here.
Sounds good.
And but before wrapping it up, is there any other question? Is there any? So that's it. For sure, in the future, we are going to have a more session about the Holo-REA. I hope we will see one day Paspi here to talk about it personally, and it would be fantastic. We already have this conversation with Paspi to see what's gonna happen and what's gonna be emerged. So by the way,
right.
Yes, it was a great effort, Connor. Thank you for bringing up the topic to open the conversation about the Holo-REA here. It was a Holo-REA in action, actually. And thank you, Shane, for the things happening to you. And so for you that watching the video, we already started also some virtual hackathon. So if you would like to be part of it or to be in the Discord, dev.point HC, it is the place, it is open, you can already join. Maybe some hackathon is going to be there and you can join and enjoy and learn and share your knowledge with us. So that's being said, thank you for watching us and see you in the next time for this session. Bye-bye. Thank you.